but she kind of wanted more and more and more and more money very quickly. I remember getting a text from her in like November 2020, like peak pandemic. The text said something to the effect of, "Hey Andy, like you haven't sold many suits in the last 2 months. Like, what's going on? Is this working?" And I'm like, "Julie, how many suits have you sold at your tourist shop in the last 2 months?" "Oh, zero?" "Right. That's because we're in the middle of a pandemic and people aren't buying anything." But like grasping that was difficult for her. It was kind of shocking to me. And I had to kind of reset my expectations for how I communicate about that.
Hey guys, and welcome to the CEO After Dark show. Today I have with me Andy Fine, the owner of Sartoro, a premium custom suit brand, who's going to talk to us about his journey from Goldman Sachs to entrepreneurship and launching a fashion brand. Andy, thank you for joining me.
Hey, George, thanks for having me here today. Looking forward to chatting.
Do you mind just saying a few words about Sartoro so that everybody has context? What
Sure,
do you
yeah.
guys?
Sartoro's an all online custom suits and formal wear brand. We're built on the premise of bringing the bespoke experience online, making it really easy to design, customize, and get fitted for a great quality suit from anywhere. It doesn't have to be at a tailor shop. Making that as easy as possible by bringing modern technology together with classical bespoke tailoring techniques and packaging it all together in an awesome online experience. And most importantly, doing it all at what we believe are pretty reasonable prices, taking what was historically a fairly expensive product, right, to get a custom made suit, and it still is in a lot of cases. We've strived to make that a lot more affordable for a wider audience.
How does that work though? Like in the real world, like how do you kind of find, like, do I submit a form? Do you show me how to measure myself? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, we use some pretty cool AI tech, as we call it, our digital tailor. And it takes 5 core inputs: your height, your weight, your age, your pants waist, and your shoe size, and a few other optional pieces of information that gets fed into a system that has analyzed millions of data points, tens of thousands of body scans, and it can predict within a few percent your full measurement profile just from that data. So it only takes about a minute, and it's quite accurate.
That's crazy. And I think you launched the brand without any institutional investment, right? Like it's basically bootstrapped.
Yep, we're all self-funded, bootstrapped, trying to really strive to be as efficient as possible in everything we do, which ranges from how we approach photo shoots and where we do photo shoots to the technology we use that increases our efficiency and our output. So it's pretty widespread how we've been able to do this.
How do you do this, man? That stuff, like launching a brand, like let alone in fashion, let alone like bootstrap. How did you start? How did you do this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was a winding journey to get here. It wasn't something that I set out to do when I was 20 or
Yeah.
younger, where I had this vision. I had been dabbling in e-commerce for several years, working on a couple of different businesses while I was also managing my consulting business. And one of the e-commerce stores I was working on was another custom suit brand. It was quite a bit lower quality. They
Mhm.
were produced in China. They were sold for $200 to $300.
Yeah.
Um, it was to the point where I was kind of just hoping that my friends would like it when I knew they were ordering one. But it actually worked pretty well, and we scaled it up fairly quickly. And it got to the point where I knew I would either have to go to China for an extended period of time and live in one of these mega cities to improve the quality, improve some of the things we wanted to do with the craftsmanship, and even simple things like branding. Um, and I decided I didn't really want to go live in China in a mega city, and
Yeah.
somewhere where I didn't want to be. And so I booked a ticket to Vietnam in February of 2020 with the goal of setting up manufacturing here, where it's pretty well known for incredibly high quality tailoring at pretty reasonable prices. And so came here to set about finding a great partner and setting up manufacturing here and essentially creating a 2.0 version of that first business
Yeah.
that I had.
It's funny that you said that about China because I have had some um, collaborations done in China, and I know there's quite a lot of cultural differences, like in Asia more broadly, I guess, and specifically in China. I don't know about Vietnam though. I haven't had the chance to work with anybody there. Like in your experience, like were there any like how was moving there, like doing business there? How has that experience been like?
There are quite a bit of cultural differences, and they are challenging to navigate, and they span both from the people and how people operate here to how uh, businesses operate here and the rules behind businesses. It can some things that are quite trivial for the West are not that way here. So I guess I can start with talking about the people. There's a lot of great people here, and they're really nice. Generally, as a culture, as a society, the Vietnamese people are very nice. They're very welcoming. They're very helpful. So that's all great. Where it can be difficult sometimes is there tends to be, and I don't know what exactly this stems from, but there tends to be a bit of lack of ambition sometimes.
Yeah,
So if someone's getting paid enough to put food on the table and have some beers with their friends, and you tell them, hey, you work a little bit harder, you can make more money.
yeah,
Sometimes the answer is, nah, I'm good, right? Um, we've had this with our tailors, right? We came in here and we took we would call it a tourist suit, right? When someone comes to this part of the world, they can buy a suit. It's tourist quality. It's fused canvas. It's made very quickly and cheaply and sold at a cheap price.
yeah,
So we came in and brought European standards, tailoring techniques with us, and needed to find tailors who would level up their quality, who would take the time where it might take them, let's say, an hour to make a pair of pants normally, or 2 hours to make a jacket, and it might take 4 hours to make ours. It might take double the time, right? It can be difficult actually to find people who want to do that, even if you're going to pay them
yeah.
double per jacket, which is kind of it's interesting.
It it is interesting indeed. How like what did you do? How did you navigate this?
Well, we started off by finding a partner on the ground. So we didn't build our manufacturing operations from scratch. So I essentially went around when I got to Hoi An. I was supposed to be here for a month and a half the first time. And I spent those first 3 weeks essentially just walking around town into different tailor shops. And I had set up a handful of meetings before I arrived, but I would just walk into tailor shops, chat with people, feel it out, try to figure out who the manager or the owner was, talk with them just as if I was a customer, get an idea more about what they were doing, and then start talking about what I'm looking to do and see if one, there was any interest, two, if they understood what I was trying to do, and three, if I thought it might be a good fit. And so I interviewed, these casual type of interviews, probably 30 to 40 different tailor shops. And ended up stumbling on the partner we went with just by chance. I was in a meeting around the corner at a different tailor shop, and it was one of their managers. The owner was away, and so he set me up to meet with one of his managers. And she kind of really was struggling to understand what I was trying to do, and like mid meeting, she has other sales staff in the shop. Mid meeting, she gets up to go talk to someone who had just walked in, like a potential customer, even though she has other sales reps. And I'm sitting there like, we're in the middle of a meeting. So I
Yeah,
don't even say anything. I just get up and walk out. I'm like, all right. And I go down the street like half a block and go into the next one I see, and it was a husband and wife team there, where the wife was Vietnamese or is Vietnamese, and the husband is Australian.
Yeah.
And that was really intriguing to me because now you have this combination of local knowledge and local culture and the ability to communicate with people in Hoi An, as well as someone who has a kind of a more Western understanding of business and how things work. And we ended up partnering with those two to have them be our manufacturing team.
Did you stay with them? Like, what? How did that go? Was your prediction correct that it would be a good fit?
So I think it was a good fit for a while. We would not have been able to do it without them, right? I had very little knowledge of how the tailoring process works in general when I was starting this, or specifically how things work in this part of the country
Actually,
or the world.
when was this? How many years ago was this?
This was we started with this first partner, and I guess it would have been mid March of 2020. So, right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay, which is an interesting time, I
It
guess.
was, yeah, not planned that way. Uh, we probably should have started off making sweatpants. Would have been better off in the first year and a half there. Yeah, so this was about a little over 4 years ago now.
Okay, and it worked for a while, and then what happened next?
Yeah, it worked for a while. They definitely helped us get off the ground, right? They managed the entire manufacturing process. They were essentially, or they were leading that part of the business.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about that. I just could focus on sales, marketing, the front end side of things. Um, it got to a point where I think it was difficult for the wife and the team to understand some of the business things we were trying to do, and the whole concept of you build and build so that you can grow and scale, and it's not just like a rocket ship immediately. And I don't know if she had separate financial burdens or something that were affecting her. But she kind of wanted more and more and more and more money very quickly. I remember getting a text from her in like November 2020, like peak pandemic. The text said something to the effect of, "Hey Andy, like you haven't sold many suits in the last 2 months. Like, what's going on? Is this working?" And I'm like, "Julie, how many suits have you sold at your tourist shop in the last 2 months?" "Oh, zero?" "Right. That's because we're in the middle of a pandemic and people aren't buying anything." But like grasping that was difficult for her. It was kind of shocking to me. And I had to kind of reset my expectations for how I communicate about that. Cause it was just bizarre to even have that even it be questioned at a time when no one's going to events, no one's buying suits. So that was kind of like where it all started, and it kind of we had more of those types of things from there. Um, the fundamental structure of our agreement, which was contract manufacturing, began to be have a kind of a forced evolution. And what I mean by that is, right, when you contract manufacture, you're paying someone a set price for a product, and they produce it, and any costs associated with that are borne by them, right? That was our agreement. That started to evolve where I started picking up the tab on different pieces of it. And it got to the point where I said, hey, we have to restructure this, right? Either it's contract manufacturing and I pay you a price per garment that we agreed on, or it's not, and you become part of the team, and I'm paying for the manufacturing and paying you a certain amount of money to manage it in that position. And we had difficulties agreeing, or it would be agreed and then it would change. I guess what this is all pointing to is that, as with anything, communication is key, and it's even
Yeah.
more difficult to do that effectively when you're working with someone who English might not be their first language.
It's really tough, I think, to have a good business partner, like that you're gonna stay. It's like almost like marrying somebody. I think it's really, really,
Hmm.
really.
Absolutely.
And people
So
get
it was,
divorced even when they get married, right? So it's like difficult, really, really difficult.
yeah, and that's more or less what ended up happening in this case, and it was almost, maybe not quite a death blow, but it was close to it. Um, we split ways with them. It was somewhat forced on us. Um, Again, it was just based on where we were at from a revenue standpoint. What the wife wanted was just not physically possible,
Yeah,
and there was just nothing I could really do that would make her happy outside of just handing over chunks of money that didn't exist.
yeah,
Uh, and so she kind of had a bit of she'd been having a couple of these swings of her mood and position on where she stood with liking or not liking the partnership. And after about like the 10th one, a particularly not good one, we just said, you know what, enough's enough. We hired, we in a period of three and a half days, I think it was, we found a new place to rent for a factory. We hired a moving team, including like a crane. We had to get like these big machines out of a third floor
yeah.
and moved everything out at about 5 in the morning before she would get there. So she wouldn't disrupt anything. By the time she got into the office factory that morning, everything was just gone. And we were just out and we had kind of completely severed ties, and it just ended just like that, almost as quickly as it started.
It's pretty inspiring what you did because, like, from an external point of view, like mine, the way I see, you went to a foreign country where you did not really know how things worked, and you were even learning the vertical while you were there. And then this happened, and the pandemic happened, and then you didn't let all of this affect you. You just bounced back instantly and set up everything again from scratch.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I did really well, and it was probably as much luck as it was a good business decision, was leading up to this. I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I had one of the staff who was again in this weird position where is she my staff or their staff because I'm paying the salary, even though it's contract manufacturing. I had one of the staff essentially collect all the information on everything about what we were doing. Where do we buy the fabrics from? Where do we buy shoulder pads and canvas and button? All the information that we would need to actually take over and run our own manufacturing ops. And I did that, and that wrapped up probably less than a month before this all happened. And the timeline in this is about, uh, this would have been April of 2023. So we were with them for quite a while, and we
Yeah.
had built up a good amount of knowledge by that point, right? But I was still, you know, a few steps back from the whole manufacturing process. So I made it a point leading up to this to learn as much as I could about it, get to know the team more that I wasn't really in charge of managing. And when we did this split, we were able to get about half of the team that was kind of working half Sartoro, half for
Yeah.
their company, which they sell suits to tourists in town. So able to get half of them, and it was the half we wanted to come with us, which was very lucky because without that, that would have been basically starting almost from scratch again.
What's this thing with the tourist quality, by the way? Like I've heard this before that there's like multiple qualities, like the foreigner quality and like the actual quality. Like how does that work?
Well, so when I say tourist quality, what I mean is with a suit, just like with anything, it could be with a car, it could be a house, right? There's different levels of quality with which it can be built and put together, right? Someone can lay crappy foundation for your house and it's going to stand up initially, but it might fall down in 5 or 10 years, right? Same with a car, same with a suit. So there's different construction methods, and down to how precise you are with the stitching, the little touches, how it looks, that take more time, right? And so a tourist suit, tourists come into Hoi An in Vietnam and they're here for a few days. So everything needs to be made very, very quickly. So
Yeah.
the kind of the culture of suit making here is cheap and fast, right? Because when someone tries on a suit in the tourist or in the tailor shop in town, and they're running around, they're on holiday, they're doing other stuff. They're just trying to get something. They're getting a great price. They're not as aware of what the quality should or shouldn't be, as well as like how much it will stand up over time, right? Because once these people are gone, they're gone. Right? It's not like buying from a tailor shop in the U.S. where if your suit falls apart in a year, you can leave bad reviews and kind of complain or go back to them and get it fixed. You're out, right? So the way they make suits is the cheapest, fastest possible way, cutting as many corners as you can. The product is still, it's not bad. Like I don't want to say that it's a bad suit, but it's fused canvas sewn together as fast as possible. Um, it's not going to stand up for
Yeah.
10 years like a really well made suit, which should last you basically as long as you fit in it. So it's a different way of doing things.
Sounds like it's almost the opposite of what you guys are doing today, right? Like, which is more of a premium product, custom made for you. Like, it's kind of actually the opposite approach.
Yeah, I mean, we're selling to customers primarily in the US, right? The standards are high. We want to deliver products that we're proud of, right? That people love and that they buy, and they buy their first suit from us, and then we become the only place they ever buy suits,
How do you
right?
compete? Because I'm assuming that I don't know the space, but I assume there's quite a lot of companies in the US that do something similar, right? Like, how do you compete?
There are and there aren't, right? So the first one is you want to look at like the price tiers, right? So there are your premium tailors, right? Your bespoke shop on Fifth Ave that you can walk into and have a suit made, and it's going to cost you probably 1,500 on the low end, right? And up from there, and it's a great experience, and it's a fantastic product, and it costs a pretty penny, right? And on the low end, you have your department store suits that are, again, they're mass produced, they're made as fast as possible, they're standard sizes, they're not custom made to you. And then there's some that play sort of in that middle ground. Um, we play in the space where our target market is people who want a really good product. They do care about the quality, and they're not just getting a suit just purely because they have to. They care about the quality, but they also care about their wallet, right? And so they want something nice, but they don't want to spend $1,000 on it,
Yeah.
right? And so we achieve that in part by emphasizing fit over fabric, right? And what I mean by that is that fabric production, which historically was something that it mattered a lot where the fabric was from, a lot, because there weren't a ton of fabric manufacturers and fabric mills that could turn out great quality, wool. That's become to a large degree commoditized, right? Where you're not building a rocket ship, you're spinning yarn together. It's not that hard, relatively speaking, right? There's still not trivial, but a lot of people can make great yarn and
Yeah.
great wool. So it doesn't have to come from an 150-year-old Italian mill anymore. And you can, and some people want that, but those wools, they cost up to $200 a meter, $250 a meter. You're looking at cost of materials alone of like $1,000 for the suit, right? By choosing fabrics that are good quality, but they're not necessarily from a name brand, right? We're able to have a much lower final cost for the customer with a fabric that for probably 90%, 95% of people, if you held up some of our fabrics against like most Italian wools, they wouldn't really be able to tell any difference.
I see. What's next for you guys? Like, what are you guys planning?
Oh, we're planning a lot. So we have a big partnership with Neil Lane, who's a renowned celebrity jewelry designer, who's he's famous for a lot of things, but one of his most notable accomplishments is he's the designer behind the best-selling line of engagement rings in U.S. history at K Jewelers. Um, Pretty like massive, hundreds of millions of dollars in sales a year, and we've partnered with him to bring his design expertise and name to Sartoro, and we're going to be designing a line of signature suits with him in elevated fabrics. We're going to be designing a line of suits in some of our existing fabrics with him. So there's a lot of work that we're going to be doing there that we're really excited about. We're going to be introducing a line of elevated casual wear, right? So one of the things with a business, right, is you want to have many things you can sell to your customer, right? If you only have one thing you can sell and someone only ever buys it once, you're always trying to find new customers, right?
Yeah.
So with suits, some people buy a lot of them. We have great customers who have bought 10 suits, 15 suits. They have more suits than me. But most people, it's a once a year, every couple of years type thing. So what we're going to be introducing is uh, custom made short sleeve T-shirts, custom made shorts, right, in nice materials that you have the customization experience. You can choose: do you want it cuffed? What style pockets do you want? What length do you want? How wide do you want the thighs? Bringing that custom experience to other more casual clothing that people need more of throughout the year. And we're going to be hopefully rolling that out at some point in July.
What about the margins doing that? Won't the pricing be lower? Will it be possible to make a profit on that? Because I assume that it's going to be more expensive, but still the cost will probably be higher than a regular, let's say, t-shirt.
Yeah, so I don't foresee us going into like a t-shirt for a while, but it'll be something like this, right? This is one of our bamboo fabrics in a
Yeah.
short sleeve that we don't have, on the site yet. But going into things like that, now the costs are there, right? But there's still a business to be made. The biggest cost and the biggest challenge with shipping from Vietnam instead of China is shipping's a lot more expensive. So
I
it's
see.
not very profitable to sell one shirt, right? Especially if we need to ship it very fast,
Yeah.
right? So we'll be working on how we can incentivize customers to get a pack of 3 custom made shirts, right? Where the shipping cost doesn't really change, but now we have 3 garments in it, and it becomes more economical for us, and we can also extend discounts to the customer as well.
Where can people find the brand? What's the website of the brand?
The website's sartoro.co, co, and that's you can find us on Instagram as well, also sartoro.co, and we're on Facebook as well. The website's the best place to check out what we have, to create your fit profile, see how it works, see what it looks like, try out our suit designer, which is a pretty cool visual tool that we have where you can design everything, on your computer, on your phone, right in front of you in real time.
Before we wrap up, Andy, if you look back to all that you've done, you've done quite a lot. Like, what's the number one thing that you would pass on as advice to people that want to start their own business?
I think there's a lot, but if I could give one, it would be when you plan everything out, right? What it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, the amount of effort it's going to involve. Once you've planned that all out as best you can, you should double those estimates.
I like
And
that.
that's on the conservative side. And you can't really appreciate that until you go through it, right? You're like, oh no, I know this is going to cost exactly this. This is what it is. I've gotten these quotes. It's going to take this long. Ba ba ba. It's always double the
Never.
cost, double the time, double the effort. So plan
I
for that. Don't have 20,000 in the bank and you're planning on it costing you 20,000 to get it all up and running, right? If you think it'll be 20,000, it'll be 40,000, right? So
That's
you
good
just
advice.
plan for that accordingly.
That's good advice. And actually, one more out of my curiosity, how did you enter e-commerce in the first place? You said that you were consulting in e-commerce. How did you get into that?
I got into e-commerce just for something to do initially, to be honest. I was doing advertising and strategy consulting for a number of businesses, and I was traveling the world. And this was back in 2017. I was going around. I was spending 1 month in one country and then going to the next month. I was doing that with a group of people through a company called We Roam that puts on these essentially these tours, right? And I had some free time and decided to just use some of my time to just dabble in this space. I had heard so much about what people were doing in it, the money to be made, the opportunity. It seemed like something fun to test out, see if it was interesting, and just started trying to spin up different stores, see what kind of success we had. I think I had three main different ones that we worked on. One of them had very little success. One of them had some, and then the suit brand was did pretty well. So it was just testing things, and that's another good tip, right? As much as you can test for as low of a cost and effort as possible. I would
Yeah,
never, ever, ever have started Sartoro and certainly never have put the investment in it that I have without having first had the previous version, the 1.0 version, right? It was through running that one, which my initial investment was 5K or something,
yeah,
right? Not much at all. And I was able to see that it works. I was able to see that I understand this. I know what's involved in it, what it's going to take. And that made me comfortable enough to invest a lot more money and a lot more time
yeah.
into this 2.0 version that has become Sartoro.
Validate the idea basically before you start burning your ships, right?
Yeah, try different things, right? There's a million things out there. And you never know, one, what's going to work, but two, what you're going to enjoy. And that's almost equally important because you are going to be
Really?
grinding and you got to really like what you're doing. You got to be excited about it. It's got to get you up in the morning. It's got to keep you going throughout the day. Um, and if you don't have that, it's going to be a tough road ahead. So you gotta try a bunch of different things with as little investment and effort as possible until you find what you like and what sticks, and then stick with it.
That's really good advice. Andy, thank you for taking the time to record with me today.
You got it, George. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And it was great chatting.